All right, we're live. And hey, welcome back to the Off-Grid Homestead, where today on today's Unbridled Living in Costa Rica podcast, we're going to be talking about the difference of, people when they come to visit Costa Rica, they're just tourists, and the difference of living in Costa Rica. I mean, do you think it's really that big a difference?
It depends. It's not that big of a difference, I don't think, depending on what you're gonna do. If you're gonna build a house, that kind of stuff.
I
Where
know
you
last
gonna
week you
live?
said it was a huge difference.
Well, it's because of what we're doing. It was a huge difference. And if you're gonna live in Playa del Coco, well, there's not much of a difference
That's a good point. I mean,
than being there on a vacation.
okay. So, but before we get into all of that, because today we are going to be talking about, hey, like she said,
It depends.
It depends. Okay. Well, we're going to be talking about, because a lot of people come to Costa Rica and they're just on vacation. They fall in love with it. And because they don't realize the huge difference between living in Costa Rica and visiting Costa Rica, some of them make some really huge mistakes. They buy property right off the bat and, cost them fortunes and then end up leaving in a year or two because they realize some of the huge mistakes they've made. But hey, before we get into all of that, if this is your first time here, well, hey, I'm Alan, and this is my wonderful co-host, Rebecca. Hey, we've been living in Costa Rica for since November 2013. Lived in over 25 different houses and locations, been all over Costa Rica, and we know Costa Rica, and we love to just share our information from our perspective so you can understand and learn about Costa Rica. Okay, so right now we're building our off-grid homestead because we've traveled all over, found our perfect slice of paradise. Okay, but hey, with that said, what's been happening on the off-grid homestead?
I knew you were going to ask me that.
No way.
Why don't you show them?
Well, why don't we show you what has been happening? Because I've actually had a chance to be home this time. So, hey, check out
this is my main water line that comes from my artesian well. And as you can see, it has a really bad leak in it. And right next to it is a union. Well, that's where I replaced or I fixed a leak last week. And I've been fixing a leak about once a week for a couple of months now, and that's simply because this line, well, it was suspended about 50 to 75 feet over this huge ravine, and a tree way up here fell on it and pulled it down. Our house is on the other side of that ravine way up there. So Nick and I had to go to town, and these rows of tubing, this is 1-inch tubing, comes in 90-meter lengths, and it's about 150 yards from one end to the other. And so I had to replace this section here, and I've got another small piece to add on to it. But anyway, we had to hike this up the ravine and to replace it. Not such a bad task, but it's very, very steep. So I had to clear this path because it's a jungle and try to hike up here and attach it on that end and then go all the way to the other side. And so right there, it's a long ways up and a long ways over. So I finally got it up, but it's not up, it's just connected. So it's only a few feet off the ground, and there's the old line that I'll have to roll up. And I'll use it later in other projects, like when I'm burying electrical lines. I'll go through that tube so I don't accidentally cut the line. But it's up there, and now I just need to hoist it, and next week or in a couple of weeks after I make sure the lines are working properly and doesn't have any leaks, I'll hoist it up there about 50 or 75 feet above the ground so it's out of sight, out of mind, out of the way, and not in the way of, anything there. So anyway, that's what we've done this week. But today it's a beautiful day, and I decided to cook over a wood fire because, hey, Nikki has run out of food, and as you guys know, I cook all of Nikki's food. So today I'm actually boiling some great big old hens, and I've got a little fire going, but it's not doing real good. My fire's not hot yet, but you can see I got 3 great big huge gallinas. Well, those are just laying hens. And I need to stoke my fire. Well, here's a little hack for you. I've got this cordless blower that this company sent to me that they want me to review. So I've been trying it out on several different things, and hey, this is really a good hack. You can put that little blower on a fire, and in just a few minutes have a really, really hot fire. And you know, some of my wood was wet, so hey, this really sped up the process. So anyway, I'll be reviewing this blower here in probably a couple of weeks. I've been trying it out, you know, on the leaves and the grass and inside the house. But hey, in just a little while, I had a really hot fire, and you can see that my hens are boiling. And so Nikki's going to be one happy camper because I'm going to have some fresh food for her in just a little while. But anyway, while we were over in town, I stopped over at the brand new Pequeño Mundo, got this new weed eater. Now, why is this important? Well, you know, all over Costa Rica, most of the time, people don't cut their grass with a lawnmower. I do. It's hard to get a lawnmower, but it's easy to find a weed eater. But in most cases, there's absolutely no selection. And so Pequeño Mundo offers a variety now, and I was able to get this for only 65,000 colones. But most of the time, the only thing you can find is a Steel. Now, Steel is a very good brand, but it could cost you anywhere from $750 to $1,000 for a weed eater, and I didn't need something that nice. Well, while at Pequeño Mundo, Rebecca spotted a nice chair, and it was unusual because the seat on it was much smaller than normal. And Rebecca, for as small as she is, she doesn't need a seat that's really long because her legs are so short. And it's kind of hard to tell in this picture, but with Rebecca sitting on it, you can see that her legs go past the chair, and so it was quite comfortable for her. Well, I started putting it together, and she's like, well, that's not the right chair. The seat is way too long. And upon investigating, I realized that whoever assembled the chair at Pequeño Mundo put the seat on backwards. We're actually looking at the seat on backwards right now. And I had to really work extremely hard to get this seat on backwards. And you can see how the back of the seat sticks out, or that's actually the front of the seat sticking out. So you know, so anyway, it's on there the wrong way, but because it was on there the wrong way, it looked like a much smaller seat than normal, and that's the reason Rebecca bought it. I just thought it was quite hilarious, but hey, it works for her.
All right, so that's what's been happening on the off-grid homestead.
Yeah.
And my chicken is actually still cooking. It's almost done. But hey, you know, what was interesting, and I guess you're probably sitting there wondering, well, why in the world are you cooking your chicken on a fire? Well, it was really just a beautiful day. I've got a really nice propane cooker, you know, that I can cook on. But
a burner.
Yeah, a burner. But you know, this week while I was out there, you know, this past Sunday, you know, you guys, we missed out this past Sunday, but I was invited to with this family that I've been doing a whole lot with, and it was just interesting to watch how, you know, these Ticos, in every little way, they're saving money. And a lot of Ticos, even most of my neighbors here, always are cooking on a wood fire. Even though they do have propane, most of them are not going to have an electric grill. But, you know, I saw the one lady, she set up some cement blocks right behind her house. And anytime she's cooking beans, because beans take a long time. Anytime she's boiling chickens, anything, she's cooking on a wood fire. And, well, you know, I don't cook on a wood fire much unless I'm camping or we're just cooking hot dogs or whatever we're cooking on a fire, you know, veggies and stuff. But I thought today is a beautiful day. Thought I'd cook some, and that's what I'm doing. So, hey, anyway, we're having a good time today. And so, hey, welcome, everybody. I'm so glad you're here. Please be sure to shout out, comment, support the channel. So anyway.
I'd like to explain a little bit about my chair.
Well, okay. Well, tell us about your chair.
Well, we're in the Pequeño Mundo, as you said, and I needed a new chair, office chair. So I'm sitting in the displays, and it was so nice. I was like, oh, look, this is made for little people, for short people. It's made, you know, a lot of Ticos are my height. And so I thought, you know, they cater into the 5 foot and under people. Little did we know
that whoever put it together didn't follow instructions.
Now, I wonder if that display has helped make sales or has helped lose sales.
I don't know. But hey, I know I had to work really hard to disassemble what I had correctly put together so that I could put it together wrong so she could have the chair.
I was disappointed. I was like, I would have never bought that chair. Look how deep the seat is. My feet are going to be sticking out like this.
Yeah. So, yeah. I mean, look, Doug's been in Costa Rica a while, goes back and forth, but he says you see stuff like that all the time. Yes, you do. Ticos don't seem to read instructions, especially.
And it was more difficult to put it together the wrong way than it was to put it together quickly the right way.
I put it together quickly the right way and didn't need any help. I had to get Rebecca to help me. Hold this thing here, push, and I'll get this screw in there. So anyway, I'm not banging on Ticos or anything.
No, it happens all over the place.
Could put it together the wrong way. But you do see that a lot here in Costa Rica. It's different, but that's part of enjoying Costa Rica. It's laid back. It's different. Hey, if they do it wrong, you know what they're going to say? Pura vida, man. It's just don't sweat the small stuff. Okay.
Worked in my favor.
I
would have never bought the chair.
If
it hadn't been put together wrong.
So I had to work really hard to get it put together the wrong way. But hey, she's got a chair that's the wrong way, but it fits for her. So that's good. But anyway, today we are talking about the difference. And hey, I want to hear from you guys. Put in no IKEA. Doug says, good thing IKEA is not here yet. No, I don't. We got no IKEA here.
No Pottery Barn.
No, a lot of things aren't. But anyway, hey, I'd like to know from you guys, when you were visiting, if you live in Costa Rica, when you came to visit, if you can remember the first time you came to visit, tell me, did you fall in love with it? And then whenever you did move to Costa Rica, what are some of the things that you found was very different from the time you were just vacationing in Costa Rica, and then you lived in Costa Rica? What did you find like crazy different? Okay.
Yeah, because we never really vacationed in Costa Rica.
Well, no, we
never visited Costa Rica. We just packed sold all our stuff.
You're not supposed to tell people that.
Well, as embarrassing as it is, it has given us the compassion and the desire to help people not do that, because it was an adventure, but we sure could have done it better. But hey, maybe we would have never done it had we planned it out. We just decided, we sold everything, we packed 10 suitcases and our dog, and
got here.
Just got here.
I can kind of tell you, because of my personality. If I'd have come to visit, I wouldn't have come back. I would not have come back.
That's true. I couldn't have gotten you to move here.
I mean, it's just, as soon as I found out how bad the internet was, now it's gotten a lot better, but as soon as I found out, all of this long waits, and, all of the lack of perfectionism, the lack of what I call having a spirit of excellence when building, I'd have never came back.
Okay, but that's mainly what we're talking about. If we would have just vacationed for 2 weeks, would you have found all that out?
I would have never learned that stuff.
That's right. So I could have still gotten to move to Costa Rica.
But I don't know. I would have researched the internet right away, because the internet's our big thing, right? I'd have been like, they ain't got good internet here.
Yeah, but we did some research, not in Costa Rica, but a little bit before we came, because that was so vital to us to continue to make a living. We did research. We called the realtor that was helping us to get our first place, and internet is wonderful. We got good internet. We didn't know.
Everybody said that we got good internet.
Yeah.
Now you got to remember,
and we told them we need to work online.
The definition of good internet is different for everybody, right? Because look, most of the Ticos, especially 10 years ago, nobody in Costa Rica worked online. Nobody. But everybody had good internet, because all they were doing is checking. Nobody, even practically, almost nobody had email, but they were on Facebook. And they're like, oh man, my Facebook's working good. So to them, that was good internet. So
right. It's perspective.
Yeah, it's perspective.
Plus they wanted to make a sale.
And they wanted to rent their place.
Yeah.
So of course they're going to say they got good internet. And that's why it's really, really important to learn how to do a speed test. And you can look, no matter where you go, you're going to rent, you just say, hey, look, let me log in, give me the password to your internet, and I want to check the speed, because they don't know how to check the speed.
Or
Most people
nothing
don't.
else, check the speed and give me a screenshot of what
No, well, no, because we made
is.
that mistake. We actually had someone send that to us, and but this was a private provider. They increased it. Remember when we went to Carmona the first time? I asked him to give me a screenshot of his speed test, and his speed test was almost double or triple what it was when we got there. He actually had the guy increase it for a day so that we would come to house sit.
And they had a tower on their property. And they had a deal with the provider.
Guy. So he gave us so don't have them send you a screenshot, because they might cheat you like we were. What you want to do is go to that place, get on their internet and do a speed test. It's simple. Go to speedtest.net, and then you can see the actual speed of the internet. And then, if you work online, you'll know, okay, well, this will work and this won't work.
Things were different with the internet back, 10 years ago when we got here. It's different now. We have over 100 megs now.
Yeah, of course, we're
in the middle of the jungle.
Internet has greatly improved, but there's still a lot of things that you do need to know the difference of, hey, matter of fact, let's take a look at what Doug says here. Doug says, here's the difference, because Doug comes to Costa Rica quite a bit. This is a Doug Dillio. He says, he learned the huge difference is, he came to Costa Rica. He had no idea that there was dismal, cheaply constructed dwellings. Most electric is not grounded. And he's absolutely right.
I was about to say that, Doug, the house that did the screenshot with, and then the internet wasn't that great when we got there. That's the same house that blew up my computer.
We lost a lot of electrical components.
Yeah, and they lost their TV, which wasn't the first time. But they didn't tell us about that their house is not grounded. And so my laptop was plugged in, and it actually went through, because the internet was slow, to try to speed things up for me to work properly. We had plugged in the Ethernet cable, which we did not know that was a direct line. It was just like having it plugged into the outlet. Well, the lightning had started, and I unplugged my computer, but it was still plugged into the Ethernet. And remember, the lightning, the electricity, the surge traveled through the Ethernet cable and fried my laptop.
Yeah. So, there's just things that you wouldn't know, because when you come to Costa Rica the very first time, now, so let's kind of set the backdrop. Most people come to Costa Rica, they're on vacation. They're not here really to research, not even thinking about living in Costa Rica. So here's one of the biggest things, and this is kind of my pet peeve, because all over Costa Rica, on every stinking YouTube channel, all over Google, when you search it, oh, the Ticos are so friendly, they're wonderful people, blah, blah. And I'm not saying they're not nice people. What I'm saying, it's very, very different whenever you live here versus visiting here. When you're visiting, think about this, okay? When you're visiting, you're going to touristy areas. Well, when you go to touristy areas, yes, everybody is friendly. I don't care what country you're in. You go to a tourist area, you're going on, waterfall rappelling, zip lining, whatever you're doing. Well, everybody's friendly to you. Why? They're friendly because they want more business. They want your tips. They want this. They want that. You're eating in the tourist areas, and they're treating you nice. They're giving you good service. They want you to tip, and you don't even know that Costa Rica is not a tipping culture. It's no Ticos, hardly ever any Ticos. Rare. Hardly any Ticos actually tip. You ask any Ticos, do you tip? No, I don't tip. Okay, nobody tips in Costa Rica. It's not a tipping culture. But when the tourists come, they don't know that. And so, because in America, we tip for everything. You think and open up a door for somebody, they give you a tip. So, you hear all the time how friendly they are. Well, when you move into a remote area like Rebecca and I did, or we moved to San Vito, well, the Ticos weren't friendly like all of the friendly people in tourist areas.
Well, they weren't catering to us.
Yeah, they weren't catering to us.
Treating us just like regular.
Yeah, they were just regular.
People.
And so, they weren't like waving and friendly and like you see in the tourist areas, okay? Like you hear all online how friendly they are. They're just normal people. Now, they're not rude, they're not crude, and if you get to talking to them, they're sociable. But, that's the big misnomer, or it's not a truth. They're friendly. Well, of course, you're a tourist. Everybody is friendly, no matter what country you're in. But whenever you live here, it is very, very different. And so living here is going to be a huge, huge difference.
Yeah. But I do have to say that unlike a lot of places in the United States that I've visited, um, the Ticos are happy.
Oh no, you're absolutely
So
right.
because they're happy, when you just see them in the grocery store, whatever, generally, people are just in a better, lighter mood, I guess you could say. And so if you say hello, they're going to say hello and big smiles. And if you need help, if you're broken down, very friendly.
Well, wait a minute. That depends.
Well, it's if
that
you,
depends.
yeah.
I've been broke down I don't know how many times and begging for help, and they'll be like, no, 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 no. You know, now if you're a woman, especially if you're a young, pretty woman, you have them lined up trying to help you. So, but that's in any country,
Right,
okay?
right.
So I'm not saying anything
You look
about
a
Costa
little
Rica.
intimidating. They might be afraid.
Maybe they were afraid this bald guy was going to work them over or something, you know, pickpocket them, or I don't know. But hey, take a look at what Doug says here. I keep saying Doug. It's several different Dougs here today. So Doug, he's from Canada, and he says, hey, we loved it the first time we came down. And I think we love it more now since we have a house and come for longer stays. Now, that is 100%. I'm glad you said that, Doug. Now, what I do want to hear, Doug, is I want you to think back with the first time you came. What was very different from when you visited to being living here? Because you know what, Doug? Absolutely. My first 8 years in Costa Rica, I have to say that there were times whenever I was like, I don't think I can stand it no more. I think it's time to go back home, gringo. Because, you know, there was things that things you can't control, things I didn't like. And you know, but once I got, and the reason I'm still here is because I knew eventually we would have our slice of paradise. And look, you saw the video. I'm cooking chickens. I don't have no one bother me. I don't have barking dogs. I don't have teenage kids playing their stereo. I got my slice of paradise where I say it all the time, CYE. I can control my environment, control your environment. When you can control your environment, Doug, you're absolutely right. You love it even more, but you got to get through that honeymoon phase. You got to get to finding your slice of paradise.
Yeah. And as we've mentioned in other videos, when in the neighborhoods that we've lived in, like the grocery stores, the restaurants, when they thought we were just
tourists
kind of passing through, because these were not tourist areas. And so when they thought we were just passing through, well, it's not that they weren't friendly, but they didn't go out of their way.
Not only did they not go out of their way, but they would give us the gringo price in a lot of places.
In a lot of places.
The price would be more expensive because they're like, oh, they're just tourists, don't know any better. And it's just ingrained. They are not going to give you the regular price.
Yeah.
In most places, not always. Okay.
But once they knew that we were living there,
and we were a part of the community.
Right. And then they treated us differently. Yeah. Like, didn't try to give us the gringo price so much anymore.
That's
right. And even like at the grocery stores, you know, asked if we wanted the little membership and just different things, you know.
Yeah. So what Doug is saying has a lot of validity to it, you know. Once you get to your slice of paradise, once you get into that community, things can change tremendously, right?
And I think we're comparing, even though we didn't come here for vacation, we have stayed in a lot of different areas. And sometimes it was just maybe for a month. And so we're kind of using that was our vacation experience in that particular area.
Yeah, or, you know, there's a lot of times when we'd go traveling, you know, because we're always exploring. And so we would end up passing through a tourist area, and we would eat at this tourist area, and we could easily see the humongous difference of eating at a restaurant in a touristy area or eating at a restaurant where we lived.
Right.
Humongous difference in the people. You know,
remember, I think we were at Tamarindo, but there were a lot of gringos at that particular restaurant. But when we come to these other places that we've lived, like in, you know, communities that are not touristy areas, we don't run into that many gringos.
Right.
You know, you're in the culture, in the communities. And one thing that I think would be different, like when you're visiting versus when you're living, is the road conditions. You know, if you're here for just 2 weeks or even a month, you can, you know, overlook the road conditions, I guess, or maybe you're not having to travel that much. But when you're doing like we are 6 hours from the airport, every time we have to go home, it's quite the journey, and the roads are, lack lines in some places, and there's some big holes and things like that. And there are also just like two main routes, in the US. We're used to, if we're trying to get to the airport and a road is closed, an interstate is
There's
closed,
always some other way around.
Some other way around. Well, you have to think ahead. You can't just leave your house that morning and go to the airport for an afternoon flight. At least we can't, because a tree down could, you can't pass if you're coming from
there's a wreck and it's forever
it's
getting
not
by.
like you can get around.
You could easily get put back an hour or two over a simple wreck or
that too,
a
because
landslide.
They don't move the vehicles when there's an accident or a wreck, whatever. They leave the vehicles exactly like they are until the police come and do their whole thing. And if you're on the Caribbean side, I think it's still like this. There's that one highway that's in and out. And
one highway to the Caribbean side.
How many times has there been a landslide when we lived over there for the 8 months? Or a tree or whatever. And it's like the road was closed for 3 days.
Yeah, and it's a long time. I mean, check out what Doug Dilio says here. He says, "Gotta love it when a Tico puts a small tree in a pothole." Pretty much telling the state to fix the hole. We just passed the other day, and we were staying at this Airbnb, and this massive tree. I bet it had a trunk that big around.
It was growing in there. The state, whatever the country,
the hole in a long time.
They've ignored it for a long time.
So it does happen. But if you see a tree in the middle of the road, know that there's a hole right there.
Yeah.
But
and a little tip: if you see a branch, kind of like a fluffy branch, full branch
side of the road,
in the side of the road, that means slow down. Somebody has traffic.
They didn't have a triangle or a cone. So
it works. That's what they know.
That's what. And check out what Doug L says here. He says the construction phase for him was a hair pulling event. That's why he doesn't have any hair. Okay, okay.
Well, and that's one of those things that it depends. If you're coming and you're trying to build a house, oh my goodness.
I'm inspecting a house build right now, and that's why it's crucial. When you're building a house, you need to get an inspector like myself. Hire a good inspector, someone that's on the job to keep things going. And so, I'm inspecting a house right now. They didn't have any sewer clean out lines in there. They weren't going to put in the ground fault current interrupter plugs in there. And so, by inspecting the house, I'm saying, okay, well, where's this at? And where's that at? And, if you don't know, if you don't have the experience I have, well, then your house is not going to be built to the standards you're used to. Okay. So it's always good to have someone like me, even if you don't have someone there full time, have somebody that knows what's going on so that you can make sure that your house is going to get built right or better than the normal Tico standard.
Now, if you don't think that there is a difference, just look at the ads on real estate sites that are selling houses. Some descriptions will say U.S. standards. Some houses have been built with U.S. standards. So the norm is to not have those standards. So that reminds me of another thing that you might not be used to if you're just visiting. When you live here, you realize that most places, hot water is like a specialty. It's not a given. When you're driving down the street and the hotel or the Airbnb advertises hot water. I remember when we first got here, we're like, why are they advertising that they have hot water?
I mean, isn't that normal?
That was so odd to us. We're like, is that a thing? Air conditioning, hot water?
You come to Costa Rica and you're just visiting and you fall in love, but you're thinking that Costa Rica is going to be exactly like where you're from. And it's normal to have
the
hot
tourist
water.
area that you stayed in.
And so it's like it's normal to have hot water in all of your sinks and all your no, it's not normal. Folks, if you don't know this, okay, I don't know the exact percentage, but do you know that the majority of houses in Costa Rica, the only place there's hot water is in the suicide shower head. Only place. Anywhere else in the house, there is no such thing as hot water. Okay. Now, if you go into touristy areas, you might have hot water in the bathroom sink. You might even have hot water in the kitchen. But most places that you live at, there is no hot water anywhere except in the shower. And where we live at, where we're remote at, I can promise you that in about a probably a 20-mile radius, we're the only people with hot water. Nobody has hot water. No one has hot water. And that's simply because in about a 20-mile radius, nobody has electric, grid electric. There is none. So the people that do have electricity might be coming from a solar panel or two, or coming from a Pelton. And so they don't have enough electricity to run a hot water suicide shower. So, when we know Costa Rica, we've been there, so it's important to understand there is a huge difference between you come here to Costa Rica, you're all over the touristy areas, and the touristy areas in San Jose does feel a lot more like where you're from, a lot more modern, right? And when you find a place to live, it's not going to be the same as a tourist area
unless you live in the touristy area.
You live in a touristy area.
In fact, hot water is not that essential down on the coast because such warm temperatures. You might rather a cold shower to
if you live on the coast and take out.
When you get into the higher altitudes, you kind of appreciate some hot water.
I mean, the first 2 weeks we were here, where were we taking a shower at, Rebecca?
Well, here at the grounds in the river.
We were, and it was cold.
It was very cold.
Wasn't no hot springs there. But Doug brings out a good point, because in Costa Rica, I don't think we have this in the United States much. But in Costa Rica, there are a lot of solar hot water systems, and for the people that can afford it, because they are expensive.
Money solves a multitude of issues.
And so you can have solar hot water systems, which are a lot cheaper and way more effective than having the United States uses hot water tanks. That is a terrible, terrible, wasteful system, okay? But we're not here to compare Costa Rica and the United States, but it is a wasteful system.
And we have hot water now. So money, if you can spend the money, it's available for you to put in the houses. But the first few, almost all the houses that we rented did not have hot water in the kitchen sink. And that was one of the hardest things for me to get used to.
Yeah, I don't think a single house we lived in, other than one or two of the houses that we sat in, none of them had hot water anywhere but in the shower. Yeah. That's just the norm, okay?
But to get used to washing dishes with cold water, that was hard. But they have some super duper dishwashing soap that will, even with cold water, will take the grease off.
But it makes you wonder, how bad is that chemical for the environment? That's why we try to, where we're at, we don't have hot water in our kitchen, but we're using what is advertised as an eco, a green soap, because we're trying to keep our environment clean. But, Randy says, it says in many ways, it sounds like Costa Rica is similar to Saigon. I haven't been to Saigon, but I hear a lot of different people say, hey, it sounds like it's similar to the Philippines and other areas like that. It is, and it is very different.
Right, and that's why perspective.
It's not different in a bad way.
Right, and that's why perspective is important, because from our perspective, we're coming from the United States. So we're comparing everything, like what we're used to. But if you're coming from the Philippines or Saigon, then it's.
Now, I got to bring this up, because I need to stop this in a hurry. Okay. Richard asked a question. What about buying land off of a website unseen? Do you think it's a good idea? Not at all. Okay. There's no regulations or anything that says that that it is who it is. Now, here's what you can do, Richard. If you absolutely love it, what you need to do is get in hold of me or watch my videos and contact my attorney, who can then do the due diligence for you. If you buy a piece of land off of a website unseen, and he actually put in here, and he says it's in the Dominical area. look, there are a lot of websites out there, and there's nobody policing them saying they got to be trustworthy. You don't know who's on there. You don't even know if he owns it. And look, I've seen several people buy property from somebody, and they thought they were buying it from so-and-so, and this person has sold that same piece of property 3 times because they didn't own that property, okay? So, Richard, be very, very careful. Now, if you get a good attorney like the one that I recommend, okay, and look, you can contact me for her name and everything, or check out my other videos. We do the Is That Legal podcast with her team, with her firm. And they will, you'll get the plat, you'll get the numbers, you get the owner, and then she can do the due diligence for you to find out, does this person actually own it? Never, 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 did I say never use whoever's selling you the property, do not use their attorney, because you'll get ripped off in a hurry. So do be careful. I hope that answers your question there, Richard, okay? So anyway, I wanted to save Richard in a hurry in case he made a bad mistake.
And little things like, okay, so you buy this piece of property because it's a good price. Little do you know, when you get there, there's no road to it.
Yeah,
it's a cow trail.
Or you don't have a water letter and you can't even build on it.
Right, you got a piece of property that's beautiful and you can't build. Or it's going to cost you more than the property price to build a road so you can access, just things like that. Besides the ownership deal.
But yeah, besides just the ownership, I mean, maybe it is a legit piece of property. Maybe he does own it, but you buy it and then you can't even build on it. That's why having a good attorney to do your due diligence will help. Now, take a look at what Pig says. He says, I have lived in some places without hot water. Everything's a trade-off. And you're absolutely right. When we were living in Patro Grande, you know what? It was hot. So it wasn't bad taking a cool shower, but you had to take a shower during the day. All of the people around here, it's cold up here, and they'll take a shower at 2 o'clock in the day or 11 o'clock in the day. And at nighttime, some do. I can't do that. But even in Patro Grande, where it was hot.
Yeah. And
I didn't want to take a cold shower at night.
And I wouldn't move back to the U.S. in exchange all this. Yeah, for hot water. Exchange all the beauty, all the peace, all that for hot water. You make do.
Yeah. Now, I do want to bring up something here, because I saw something that Eduardo said earlier, and it's more about living in Costa Rica, maybe even visiting Costa Rica, because, it's such a huge difference from living and just visiting. So let me take a quick look here if I can find it real quick. Eduardo said, he said, there it is right here. He said, having a Tica wife helped a super lot. Ticos, some say, oh, that gringo has a Tica wife. And it's absolutely true. I mean, when I was living over in the Jaco area, I met this one guy. He was a gringo, but he had a Tica wife and Tica children. This guy had a bad story. He had addiction problems, drunk all the time. And I mean, he wasn't even a legal resident. And normally he would have been thrown out of the country. But because he had a Tica wife and Tica children, it was like the police would just overlook it, because the Tica wife and children needed someone to take care of them. So yeah, it is absolutely true that when you're living here, having a Tica spouse or having children, even if your children are not Tica, if they're born here, then they automatically are Ticos because of their national, they're born here. So they have a dual citizenship from wherever you're from and here. So it does make a huge, those little things do make a big difference when living in Costa Rica.
Yes. You've heard that from more than one family.
Yeah.
People.
So it does make a difference. So what are some other things that are a tremendous difference? Well, if you're traveling and visiting Costa Rica as a tourist, prices are going to be way more expensive. Whenever you find a place to live, unless you're living in a tourist area, you live outside. Most people do not come to live in San Jose or in the metropolitan area. Most people don't live in the touristy areas, and you find out the prices are so much cheaper. It's way more affordable to live in Costa Rica than being a tourist. The tourist areas, when I was living over in the Jaco area for a little over 6 months, my rent, my food, everything was twice as much. So depending on, you could be in Tamarindo, it might be 3 times as much. Matter of fact, I'm going to be doing a video real soon, because I watched this one video of these people who came here. They moved into the Tamarindo area, and they end up paying like $1,500 rent. And then one of the reasons why they left Costa Rica is because rent was so high. I'm like, that's your fault. You're living in a tourist area. You're complaining that you're paying $1,500 rent. Well, you made a stupid mistake. You're renting in a touristy area. If you rent 20 minutes outside of Tamarindo, you could have found places for $200, $300, $500 a month. But if you live in a tourist area, your prices, it's always going to be more expensive.
Right. If you're over in Jaco, you're like, oh my goodness, these restaurants.
I rented 4 walls, an empty apartment for $600 a month, and I could have gotten the same thing in San Isidro for $300. Easy.
Yeah. The price of the food, even aftercare, sunburn aftercare, aloe vera is like $20 for something that you can get elsewhere for,
Yeah, it is a huge difference.
So I think something that if you're just coming as a visitor, a tourist, you don't realize that if you were to live here, that the police don't actually do too much about theft and things like that.
Yeah.
We've talked a lot about that.
And people don't realize that because when they come here as a tourist, they see the police going around. And so it feels very safe, doesn't it?
Yeah.
You see the police and everything, you think, oh, Costa Rica's pretty safe. But then when you live here, you realize, well, there's the presence police. They don't really do anything about, the presence police. If they see a fight, if they see something, they get called to go do something. But they're just there as a preventive measure. But they don't really do much. So that's a big difference.
And it's a little bit different from in the United States. They may not try real hard, or they can't actually find, who stole something or whatever in a community, but they'll at least take a report, and maybe
they'll take a report. That's a waste of time because they don't go nowhere.
Yeah, but they don't really do that. That here, and it was kind of shocking to me that like they just didn't consider it a big deal.
Yeah. Now take a look at what Muka says here. He says, I live in Santa Ana. It's not a touristy area. It is really expensive, but he's not saying rent, not rent compared to USA, but food and restaurants. You're right. Yeah. So
it's
no matter where you live at,
mm-hmm.
We found out that in most places, and we have lived, like I said, all over Costa Rica, from San Vito all the way up north of San Jose, all restaurants, all food, when you go into grocery stores, almost everything expensive. Now, there are some hacks. If you want to eat cheap, go to a soda. You can find some really good sodas, not much on the menu, but you can get it cheaper. If you find a soda, and I don't like to go to a soda because most sodas, I can't get me a good cold Allen's apple juice. Most sodas don't sell alcoholic beverages, okay? But if you go to a soda, it's generally, the food is generally a better flavor, and it's always going to be cheaper. So, and you live on the outskirts, rent is always cheap. But as far as grocery shopping, I just don't know where you get cheap groceries. Now, if you go to some places like the Auto Mercado, there are grocery stores where it's way more expensive. You go to the BM, much nicer experience. The Auto Mercado, nicer experience. But you're paying more money for that experience,
mm-hmm.
okay? You go to some of these pulperias. Here's what in the United States, you go to a convenience store, you pay convenience store prices. In Costa Rica, it's not that way. If you go to a pulperia, the bread in the pulperia is the same price as the bread in the supermarket in most cases, okay? So, but hey, food is expensive in Costa Rica. So, hey, I'm glad you brought it up.
If you want to pay these food costs, you just have to eat.
You eat like the Ticos. You eat like the locals. Save money on food costs.
Which is pretty much beans and rice.
Beans and rice and rice and beans.
Yeah, very small amounts of meat and mostly
meat,
a lot of vegetables.
Yeah. Now take a look at Doug says, I love the fact that fuel is the same price wherever you go, and it doesn't matter what brand gas station.
I agree. You don't have to shop around for fuel. What station has the cheapest
That's
price.
right.
You can just pull in when you're about to run out of gas.
That's right. I love that because, I had a grocery store, convenience store for over 7 years. And my whole goal when I opened up that grocery store was to have the lowest gas price around. Because I knew if I could bring people here to get gas at my place, I'd sell them something else.
Yeah, that was in
in the United States. That was in Louisiana. I was always looking for the cheapest gas. Well, in Costa Rica, the government controls the gas prices. The gas prices are the same no matter where you go.
Yeah. In the US, you have an app. You can get an app for your phone to find the cheapest gas prices. And you don't have to worry about that. They're all the same price, all high.
Yeah. And of course, Doug brings up a good point. You know, when you do go grocery shopping, you almost have to hit every grocery store in town to get whatever you need because it's so hard. I mean, living in Patrol Grande, we had 3 decent sized grocery stores, and Rebecca would have to go to all 3 every time to get the 10 things on her list.
Yep.
So, you know, when you're traveling and visiting Costa Rica, that's not a problem because you don't hardly buy groceries. You're out eating at restaurants, you're having a good time. You know, it is a huge difference because you come to Costa Rica, visiting Costa Rica, and you're doing all these tourist activities, and you know, then you always get the tico that says, you got to see my property. Man, I got the most beautiful property in Costa Rica. And he's trying to sell it to you, you know, and you just really fall in love. Okay. And what you don't realize is that, you know, you've got to spend time in Costa Rica going to different places. You know, we've lived all over, and 25 different places. How many of them were like exactly the same? None. I mean, every place we lived at was different. And then our most favorite place was?
Our most favorite place to rent, or
to when we went visiting and living all over the place, our favorite place was, of course, here.
Yeah.
That's why we moved here. You know, but
Are you talking about Chimero?
Well, Chimero was one of our favorite places to live at, but we chose not to live there. We chose to live here because this was even better and it was more remote, right? But we all, you know, my point is it's important to travel around. You know,
yeah, they all had pluses and minuses, and I found just like the weather is microclimates, the people are they're microcultures.
Yeah,
you know, we've lived in a lot of family
environments,
like the whole mountain, kind of like Walton's Mountain. The whole mountain is one family, and they have their own little ways, you know. And so that's very interesting. We always say that, you know, if you are able, try living in you know, renting in a few different areas before settling on what you like.
You need to rent, and you need to rent at least for 2 or 3 months in one place so that you can have time to explore the different areas, talk to the different people, you know.
That's something that you may not get from just visiting. You can watch videos and hear about it, but until you have lived through 6 months of rainy season where it rains every day pretty much, you don't know if you can handle that, or you know how that's going to affect you. Doesn't bother us. We like the rain, but it does cause
it causes you to change up your routine, you know.
Yeah.
Now let's go to what Reckon said. He was talking about how, you know, food can get expensive unless you do what Reckon is saying. Hey, just go fishing and fill your freezer. That's what I do. And I got free. Well, Rebecca's eating a bunch of it, but man, we went on a fishing trip, caught a bunch of mahi. I mean, these things were all 3-4 foot long, and we caught, I think it was 8 of them, and we filled our freezer full of mahi. Yeah. And of course, you can go to the produce markets, the farmers market, and you can get veggies.
I was going to say that when we're talking about the grocery stores. If you go to the farmers markets, and if you find where the farmers market is in your little community, the veggies will be, fruits and vegetables will be really cheap then. And they grow, you know, stuff grows on the trees all over the place. You can get fruits and vegetables. The mahi wasn't free though.
It wasn't free. I mean, we did pay to go out there. But long story short, we got 8 great big ones, I think. If we would have had to buy them, more.
Yeah, if we would have had to buy those,
you know. So while it wasn't free, now guess what? You can go fishing and you can rent. It's not expensive to go get a boatload full of fish and fill your freezer up full of fish. And there are, I mean, hey, if you're a good fisherman and you go surf fishing and stuff like that. The thing about fishing, though, is in the United States, you know, I was used to just going to lakes and all over the place and catching fish.
Right.
And
that's what I was going to say. For us, being from Louisiana, you just go out. It doesn't cost to go fishing. Once you have your
got your bait and equipment. in Costa Rica, it's different. Now if you like to go surf fishing, and that's one thing. But there's not a lot of rivers where you can go fishing. Now I did find one place that's got trout.
There's a lot
can't wait to go try.
There are a lot of rivers, but there's not a lot.
Lots and lots of rivers in Costa Rica, but almost all of the rivers have no fish. There's not, all the rivers have low water. And it's always running. So anyway, fishing in Costa Rica is very, very different. There's almost no freshwater fishing because there's not a lot of lakes around. There are some. I just said almost no freshwater fishing. So it does make a big, big difference. But hey, you can't. There's, like I was saying, there's one place there over Death Mountain, and there's a place where there's a big river, lots of trout, and I want to go. I hope to film that real soon, because I'm excited to go do some trout fishing over there. But absolutely, it's a big difference, right? So anyway, I'm kind of going through some of these questions here. But hey, put your questions in here and your comments on what you found was different. What are some other things that you found very different from, what a tourist would experience compared to living in Costa Rica?
I think maybe you don't realize by just visiting how difficult it is to find like your favorite brands. There's limited choices in the stores as far as brands and things like that. I guess it was just naive of me thinking, the United States is all about commercialism. So if you want to buy shampoo, there's like 100 options.
So many different brands, man. You can get any kind of shampoo you want, right?
Right. And it's not necessarily like that here because they have to import a lot of stuff. And so you just don't have that much choice. And to order online is not an easy thing. Although I do see, people order shoes and all of that, but the shipping is expensive. And there are rules about what you can have shipped into the country.
Now, to know, pause for a moment. I don't know of any place in Costa Rica where I can actually order online from a store in Costa Rica and have it shipped. And so, that's something that as a tourist, you're coming here thinking, oh man, I shop at Amazon all the time. Costa Rica, keep shopping. Well, that ain't happening. Okay. The postal system in Costa Rica is pretty much non-existent. They don't ship stuff like in the United States. So it is a huge thing. And, I want to bring up what Doug said right here. As a tourist, you don't get a chance to go do your banking. But when you live here, it's like he said, banking is a nightmare. And that's a whole nother video altogether, one that I've been working on. So it is a big difference.
Pretty much inconvenience is not considered an inconvenience here.
Wait, say that again. Say that again.
If that makes sense. Inconvenience, what we would consider an inconvenience, is not considered an inconvenience.
Pura vida.
Yeah.
Pura vida.
So it's just that's just how it is. And if you're going to stress out about it, be angry about it, want to change it, then you best not come.
No, you got to slow down. Everything takes longer. Everything takes longer. And so you just got to realize that. The other day I was working on that water line. I thought, oh, heck, man, I'm just going to replace that water line. I got 90 meters. I'm going to connect it here, Everything takes longer. And so it just does. Okay. Here's the thing that's different. In the United States, it's no sweat to contact an Uber, get it there, get it that. Well, in Costa Rica, you can get an Uber, not in all places, but Uber is different because technically it's not legal. I use Uber all the time, okay? And so you can use Uber. It is a lot cheaper and way, way, way better than getting a taxi, okay? But it's one of those things. It's not legal, but Costa Rica has a lot of laws that they pass, but they do not enforce. China has their version of Uber. I can't remember the name of it.
Is it DD or something?
I think it is
like
DD or something. So, yeah, look, there are Ubers all over and you can use them. And it is cheaper than using a taxi. And guess what? The taxis, if they would be honest, well, you wouldn't have a problem with Ubers. Okay. So anyway, that's a whole nother topic as well. Okay. But hey, I'm glad that you brought that up, Muka. Okay.
Yeah. And on a good note, something you may not realize if you just visit is how wonderful Costa Rica is.
Oh,
To
absolutely.
live on vacation instead of taking vacation. You know, like getting to live in a country so diverse with plants and animals, and just an easygoing culture. You know, it's price. It's like being on vacation all the time.
We were sitting here this morning and sitting out in the house. It's not quite done. Looking out, having a coffee like we do every morning, and we're watching the hummingbirds and the birds and the squirrels. And if you love nature, you'll absolutely love Costa Rica. Costa Rica doesn't have a whole lot to do, and when you come here as a tourist, man, you're zip lining and horseback riding and waterfall rappelling and waterfall rapids, all this crazy stuff. Well, when you live here, you're not going to be doing that. Okay, that gets old real fast, and so there's not a lot to do in Costa Rica. In the United States, there's a ton of things to do. You want to go play putt-putt in the theater and this and that and all kind of. There's not a lot to do in Costa Rica. Now, when it comes to nature,
there is. In the city and the tourist areas. We're not
That's
talking
right.
about those areas.
If you love nature, there's a ton of stuff to do. There's endless trails. There's hidden waterfalls, all kind of things that you can go and do and enjoy Costa Rica.
Bird watching, night hikes.
Night hikes where you can see all the different things, right? All kind of stuff. Now, Karen brought up a topic here, and she says, hey, I'm sorry to be off topic. How would you transfer your medication from the United States to Costa Rica? My husband has type 1 diabetes. Hey, here the good news is in Costa Rica, there's people that have type 1 diabetes as well. So what you have to do is, hey, you can bring your prescription or bring your stuff. There's pharmacies all over the place. You bring in what you typically use and say, hey, look, I want this exact thing or I want something comparable, okay? And they can give you either the exact thing or comparable.
The only issue is, just like I was saying with shampoos, in the U.S., there are tons of options. Most medications, whatever there are lots of different medications for the same to treat one thing. Well, there may be three. There may be 3 high blood pressure brands, medications, or I can't think of everything, but it is different from the U.S. I don't know about Canada. I don't know how many options they have with that medical system, but in the United States, because it is a competitive market, there are lots of medications to choose from. And if you go to your doctor and you want to try one medication, that one doesn't work, well, try a different brand. Well, there's just not that many options, but there's no restriction against flying back to your country and getting a
go
6
buy
month
what you
supply
need and bring it back.
Yeah.
And if you've got insurance in the United States and it's cheaper now, you will find that once you get in the CAHA system, a lot of your medications are covered. But if you have insurance in the United States, it might be cheaper just to fly over in the United States for a couple of $100, get 6 months supply of whatever you need and bring it back, like Rebecca said. So hopefully that will answer your question, Karen. Okay.
And of course, things that may have gotten better with that. I'm basing this on, a few years ago. Fortunately, we don't have to buy anything.
So take a look at and maybe kind of help answer some of your questions. Muka said, I spent $100, went to a local doctor who looked at all of my meds and prescribed local versions for the same thing. So Karen, I hope that helps you out right there. Okay. And that's what Muka did. Rebecca and I, neither one of us take any kind of medications whatsoever. We live a very healthy lifestyle. But hey, not saying anything bad about anyone else. Sometimes you have to have medications, and that's what Muka did. Hey, you can do that exact same thing, Karen. Go to a doctor. Going to a medical place here, it's not going to cost you a fortune like in the United States. Okay. So it does make a big, big difference. Okay.
But if a particular brand is the only thing that works for you, so
you have to take a look at that. So, of course,
you can see that before you move on to something else. You can see that, like, even with pain relievers. you know, there's not like what we have, Aleve and Tylenol and Motrin and all the different brands. There are like maybe 3 or 4 that you can
there's
that we might recognize, but they do have others that we're not used to.
Yeah,
you know,
when anytime, here's what I really like about going to a pharmacy in Costa Rica. In the United States, you go to a pharmacy, okay, and a lot of times you got to have a prescription for this, a prescription for that, a prescription for this. But I have walked into a pharmacy, showed them whatever I had on my arm, and said, "Hey, look, I got this insect bite here. Can you give me something?" And they gave it to me. Okay, I've been to a few places, like you go to Walmart, they're like, "Oh, you got to have a prescription." I just go down the street to the other pharmacy. In the other pharmacy, I show them the exact same thing, show them this fungus I got on my toe, and they prescribe me whatever I need to, because the actual pharmacist, that's his degree. He knows what he's doing, and he gives me what, and I can. So it's very simple to get the kind of medications that you want in Costa Rica. It may not be exactly what you're used to in the United States, but you most definitely can get whatever you need to treat whatever you have. Yeah. Okay. Now, there is one thing that they can't treat, okay? And I'm sorry, Eduardo, they can't treat you for this, because Eduardo said that the best thing about Costa Rica is the ketchup. I'm sorry, they can't treat your taste buds, Eduardo. Costa Rica's ketchup is horrible, but I see a lot of people don't agree with you as well, because Reckon says, Eduardo, for this ketchup over Heinz. So anyway, Eduardo, there's a lot of people that don't agree with you. But anyway, anyhow, Eduardo says there are also great herbalists and stores that can help you if you want to get a more natural type of product to heal you as well. So, Eduardo, I hear that you can. I think you ought to grow some tomatoes and make your own ketchup. It would be better than Costa Rica's ketchup. Anyway, so hey, we're already at the top of the hour. Greatly appreciate all of you joining us for today's Unbridled Living in Costa Rica podcast. We always have a great time with you guys. If you got any last minute questions or any comments, please put them up there right now. We absolutely love you guys joining us every Sunday, if possible, every Sunday at 4:30. We have the Unbridled Living in Costa Rica podcast, where we talk to you about real life, and we try to share everything. Even when we give you an update on Costa Rica, we want to share stuff that's useful for you, right? It's like the weed eater. It's useful because whether you buy one or not, you could only buy one kind. I wasn't going to spend $1,000 for a steel, but things are starting to improve and get better and better. It's hard to find a lawnmower, but hey, so everything that we share, we try to share stuff, even whenever we're sharing stuff about the off-grid homestead, building an extension cord. Why is that important? Well, you can't find good quality extension cords in Costa Rica. So everything that we share is stuff that you can use. I ain't never going to ask you, hey, what color do you think I ought to paint my bicycle? I just don't see how that's useful, okay? So, hey, if we share anything, I hope it's stuff that you can use and can apply to your life if you decide to move and live in Costa Rica. Can't wait to see you next week, folks.
Ciao.
Ciao.